Okay.
Oh,
a lot of it fell through our deck. So Shane said, well, I hope we don't have to go under the deck ever.
Oh, no.
You guys are so talented.
We've just been doing a lot. Like today, I spent most of the day like digging in the dirt, like for our gardens and all kinds of things. So it's been busy. You've seen it.
All right.
Awesome.
All right. Do we have everyone on? Is everyone on that needs to? I was going to say our superintendent. I do not see her name.
I just texted her, said, coming.
Okay. Come on. Yeah. I'm sure not. All right. I'm sure not. Yeah, because as soon as we see her jump on, I'll start.
She should be on.
There she is.
Oh, there she is. All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the May 6th meeting of the Auburn School Committee. Let's start off this evening with introductions, please.
I am
Ward order. Yep.
Ward order. Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, Rose Walker, Ward 1.
Pam Hart, Ward 2.
Karen Matthew, Ward 3.
Ryan Belknap, Ward 4.
Dan Poisson, Ward 5.
Faith Fontaine at large.
David Simpson at large.
Brian Carrier, Mayor's Representative.
All right. Thank you, everyone. So now the communications are done. I'm sorry, introductions. Next, we have communications. Communications this evening. I think for me, I'm going to take just a second to speak on behalf, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but I want to speak on behalf of the Auburn School Committee and just extend our undying gratitude and our appreciation for our educators who are out there every day. It is Teacher Appreciation Week, and when I think of educators, I put you all in that group. So anyone who has anything to do with children, we appreciate you from the bottom of our hearts. You have picked up the ball of distance learning, and you didn't stop.
I'll have to wait.
So we are eternally grateful for everything that you are doing out there for our kiddos. So from one educator to all of you, thank you so much. So I just wanted to extend that to on behalf of the school committee. So thank you. Anyone else for communications this evening?
I have my hand up.
I can't see the way it's done. The way you guys are all stacked on the sides now because the agenda's up instead. So if you have it, just jump right in.
Okay. If many of you know, and I know Karen does because we went by her house today as we were honking our horn. So today we had a very exciting event where we revealed the top 10. So I thought I would publicly tell you who the top 10 are for the class of 2020. So number 10, these are honor parts. Rebecca Raby, honor part 9, Annabelle Pendleton. Honor part 8, Alexis Jellison. Number 7, Ben Hallett. Number 6, Jordan McKinnon. Number 5, Keegan Rodrigue. Number 4, Ryan Lafreniere. Number 3, Emma Stoner. Number 2, which is a salutatorian, Caroline Hammond. And our valedictorian this year is Storm Gibson. So congratulations to all of our students. Yeah. So it's very exciting. I think the parents, the families, the students were very excited. We had over 200 people watching it live as we made our way through all of Auburn and even into Lewiston, because we do have a student that is living in Lewiston at this time. And so we even went that direction. So it was very exciting, and I just want to do a shout out. And same with you, Karen. A lot of educator appreciation going on all week. So we did a huge shout out to our staff as well around all they're doing for our students.
Absolutely. Thank you, Katie. Anything else for communications this evening?
Yes, I have. I'm not muted, right? Sorry.
Nope, we can hear you.
I'm on a different device tonight, so if I disappear, I'm not sure what I'm doing. You guys keep on disappearing. I don't think I have. So I did receive oops. Can you see me right now?
Yes.
Okay, because I can't see you. Hold on one second. Oh boy. Okay. I did receive a anonymous letter from a concerned citizen in regards to our Zoom meetings and how we are portraying ourselves. So I'm just going to read that real quick if I can. And I'm just going to preface it with, I know, we're all new to this. This is new territory that, it's just, we're at home. I know I'm at home with my family, my 3 kids, my 3 dogs, and I know I'm guilty of some of these concerns. So I just want to start with that. But I think it's just good to, relay this message to the public that there are people concerned, and to the rest of us, even just so that we can be more conscious of ourselves while we're on these meetings. Because it's very, it's very different than sitting in the boardroom. So, dear Ms. Fontaine, I am writing to express my disappointment regarding the way in which our current school committee is conducting itself. As someone who watches the school committee meetings from home, I have been concerned about what I have been witnessing with this new committee. There is at least one member who is constantly looking at their phone and seems quite distracted. It is not my place to judge why this person has their phone so readily available, but I'm concerned that this person appears disinterested and disengaged in important conversations. Additionally, I have started to wonder if other community members are communicating with school committee members during the meetings, and the committee members are serving as microphones for those residents rather than sharing their own thoughts. As you did at the meeting other night, I would hope others would announce for whom they are speaking rather than pretending they are making their own thoughts or questions. Also, it seems that some members are unprepared for discussions, and I haven't had the time to read all relevant emails and information. I understand that finding time is a struggle, but feels it wastes a lot of time to have to fill committee members in during a meeting. And finally, I noticed at least one member is not fully visible during the virtual meetings. It seems strange that this person disappears and returns without any explanation. Clearly, that wouldn't be tolerated in a live meeting and feels less transparent. Thank you for taking the time to listen and voice my concerns to the committee. So just, I felt like I had to say that because again, it's, none of us have lived through this and we're all learning. There's many distractions, but I just did want to voice that concern I received in the mail.
Yeah, thank you. And we are definitely learning. It's definitely an understanding. I know, for all of us that this is, you have to sort of block everything else out and behave like you're in council chambers, and that is confusing. And when we're on our couches and all of that stuff, but hopefully we will not be in this format for that much longer, and we can get back to being as business as usual. But thank you, Faith, for sharing that, and I appreciate that. That feedback. I think it's important for all of us to hear and to know, because it might seem like it's only us right here on the screen, but the reality is it's not, and sometimes I think we forget that there are other people that are part of this meeting as well. So thank you, Faith, for bringing that up. I appreciate that. Anyone else? All right, seeing no other communications, let's move on to the consent agenda. So can I entertain a motion for the approval of tonight's agenda, as well as the approval of the minutes from the April 15th and the April 22nd meeting, as well as contract renewals?
And Karen, just so noted that the addendum had some changes and revisions to it to be included in this vote.
Yes, so that included all the addendums that we added for tonight as well. But those were sent to us in plenty of time to go over. So can I have a consent for the approval of the agenda tonight?
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Brian. Thank you, Dan Poisson. I think that was you for a second.
Yep.
All right, and now I have to do roll call because I cannot see all of you, so I can't see hands. So Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3 is a yes. Ward 4,
Yes.
5,
Yes.
Faith,
Yes.
Dave Simpson,
Yes.
and Brian Carrier.
Yes.
All right, motion passes 8-0. Thank you. All right, after consent agenda, moving on, I'm gonna flip a few pages. Public participation. So public participation, we are holding this meeting in Zoom style again, as you know. Phone number is there. If you would like to call for public participation, the number is 207-240-3739. And tonight, again, another thing I've learned, I use my headphones. So obviously I won't be able to do that. I'll remove my headphones, but the number is, we're streaming live. I don't think I announced that at the beginning. We're streaming live on the YouTube channel or the on the Spectrum channel 1301, I believe. You can find us through Auburn Maine, the .gov. People know how to find us. Oh, wait just a moment. These are the moments where I'll be glad to be back in chambers. I feel like the second I say I'm going to close public participation, my phone's going to ring. Nope. All right, I'm going to close public participation at this time. Moving on, student information. We don't have our students, although I wonder if next meeting, I wanted to just mention that at next meeting that I was going to invite our students to come on in just to give us a quick update of how they're doing. And so hopefully we can get them as part of this Zoom meeting coming up pretty soon. So probably our May 20th, I believe, will be our next meeting. So we'll ask them to join us just to give us a little update. All right, superintendent's report.
Okay, so I'm going to start with some reports that are not on the agenda to let you know what's going on behind the scenes, because you don't see what we're doing on a daily basis, and we're not quieter by any means. We're busier as we really working hard, especially around the budget. So I want to give you some things that we're working on. We're not going to have a discussion on it. I just want to tell you some things that are going on behind the scenes as we prepare for the May 20th budget workshop. And we definitely need to plan for May 27th, because everything that we need to talk about regarding the budget is going to take longer than an hour. So please plan on May 27th at 6:00 to continue budget discussions. What is nice is we've been given a gift of time. And with the gift of time, we can work out things that are happening just day to day, moment to moment regarding the COVID pandemic and how it's impacting our schools. So a couple of just updates and things that we're working. When we reviewed the CARES grant, Adam went through the CARES grant specifically about what can and cannot be. And we noticed there was mention of transportation, and that you can't use CARES grants around transportation because of the 279 state subsidy, which sparked him to call the DOE, Tyler Backus, and ask around the buses going into the capital dollars. So when you read around bus purchasing, it doesn't say anything about having to purchase out of general funds. So when Adam called to make sure we weren't missing anything, they did say the buses could not go into the capital improvement dollars. So we are working on that $174,000 and what we will do to put either one bus, two buses in the general fund. So we're working on that. We're working on the CARES grant. What's happened is the DOE, the Maine Department of Ed, released information and then got more information from the federal government. So at first, the federal government kind of said, no, this is going to be kind of help you out, whatever your needs are. Then a next communication came and said, "Oh, hold up, we are still looking at how to define how to use those CARE grants." So at one point, the application opened for schools, and now it has closed again as the state gets more and more clear about what can and cannot be used with your CARES grant. So we talked to Sue Doris, who oversees our title grant, this afternoon, and really talked about what are we identifying for CARES dollars that is definitely connected to COVID-19, and also recognizing we should not be spending all our CARE grant money now with the expected needs of next year. So that is still, so what's nice is we're getting 2 more weeks before May 20th to really get some more direction on that. The other thing is curtailment planning. We're hearing in our superintendents groups, business managers are talking and hearing that probably in late August, we'll hear about a possible curtailment after July 1's revenue, state revenue dollars are assessed. And what a curtailment means is that state subsidy dollar amount that we've been using as part of our revenue would be reduced. So we have been, Adam and I have been talking about what might be the reduction anticipated with really very little direction. So we need to be starting to think about if those state dollars are reduced, what we need to be looking at reducing our budget now, reflecting a reduction in state subsidies starting next year. So those are things we're working on. We're working on the retirement incentive, which you will hopefully move forward this evening as AEA, which Courtney and Maureen and Bree are on this call, on this Zoom meeting. They're reviewing it as well. Dave Simpson has asked us to look into furlough and how does furlough work. And so I have spoken to Peter Femley, our attorney, today, and he and I need to talk more. He knows we have a little time to work out some details, so I want to make sure I have my accurate information for you on May 20th. So we covered that. The 2 other things. So I want you to know what's going on behind the scenes around budget information that we'll be bringing to you on May 20th. The other thing with budget, and I think I put it here, so hopefully, I don't know what's about to come up on my screen. No, that would not be it. Okay, don't have it. At City Council, Karen and I talked about this in our weekly check-in. City Council, and Brian Carey can also speak to it. The City Council approved the referendum question, and I thought I had it up, but I can pull it up if we need it. The school department has regularly put on a second non-bonding question, which asks voters to answer whether this year's budget, so the budget for next year that you just approved, do you think it was too little, too much, or just right? Last year, about 1,600 people voted that it was just right. Approximately 500 said it was too high, and approximately 350 said it was too low. It really has been used in case the budget failed. It's more feedback to you all about this budget that you just put forth towards the public, some feedback, especially if they were to not approve the budget. You would have some guidance, even though it is City Council who decides whether the budget may be too high, too low, or just right. The City Council had a discussion. I did not watch it, but I know Brian Belknap saw it, and I think Karen saw it. Mm-hmm. They felt the question should be more to inform you for next year's budget. So if they felt this budget was too high, then perhaps next year we should be considering that when we develop the next budget. That was never the intent. It was feedback on the budget you developed for the following school year. So when Karen and I talked about it, it's not so much important can we go with or without it? Yes, we can. City Council did not approve it with the direction that if we wanted a second question, we need to work on it. And when I talked to the city manager, Peter, and then I talked to Phil Crowell as well, they need a rewritten second question by tomorrow or Friday to put in the packet for Monday. So when Karen and I were talking, we just feel like we're not going to move forward with the second question. So I want to make you aware that there will be one question, which is to approve the school budget, but there will not be a second non-binding question unless you all tell me tonight, yes, I do want one, and you need to work it out so that it's acceptable for City Council. So that's one thing, and we can talk more about that if you want. Also, the COPS grant we did not submit a COPS grant. When we reviewed how much work had to be done within a short time frame, and you had to make a very strong argument that you did not have funding for those items, and we do have funding in our CIP, but we didn't feel ethically we should be applying at this time. And lastly, good news, our lunch program served 33,422 meals in the month of April, with 18 food service workers working hard. They keep making adjustments like incorporating reheating food. So lots of great news from our food service as they work on summer prep, things that they're doing to support the community. Melinda Chadbourne, I want to give her a shout out. Melinda Chadbourne, who is a parent and also is a social worker at Walton. She connected with Chris Piercy to say, if people are picking up meals that we've prepared, can we bring those to different food banks or shelters? And so he is connecting. Volunteers call and say, do you have any food? And then they come pick it up if we do. So thank you, Melinda, for putting that towards as we work together as a community to support our not just our families, but everyone in need. So shout out to food service, shout out to nurses, shout out to educators. It's a week of celebrating, and our top 10, celebrating people.
Okay. Any questions for Katie with everything she just went over? I know that was a lot. I get that. I know that was a lot. I think really, the updates on budget help us kind of start to get our minds ready for the 20th. But the question with the non-binding question, I was not expecting that to come up at City Council last night. I don't know that any of us were thinking it was coming up last night. And for those of us who are regular voters, I think you know which question Katie was referring to, thinking about, there have been years where the budget is not passing. And so it was an opportunity to get feedback as to why the current budget was not passing. So I don't know, just in speaking to Katie, it was not part of our conversation. It's never been a part of our conversation around budget. And it just seemed, what were we doing with the question? What were the results of the question? And really, does that question impact this year's budget potential? So that was my thinking around, let's not rush it and come up with a question just to have a question. I think we're okay right now. I believe we're okay right now to not formulate a question, but that I'm not the end all be all. So if there's anyone else that wants to chime in and has a different thought, different idea, Brian Carrier, you were there. I was watching it live, but if anyone feels the need to jump in and want to, if you jump in to say yes, so we want the question, then you're volunteering yourself too to help formulate that question now.
I agree with you, Karen. I don't think it's needed. I mean, obviously, if the budget doesn't pass, I would hate to say that it's an assumption that it's too high. I mean, I think that's probably the only reason the budget won't pass. I can't imagine it's going to pass because it's too low. So rushing that question in now just to try to get it in doesn't seem to make sense to me. If we had a strict plan of what we were going to do with the data, and if the data was really, truly valuable, then maybe, but trying to do it at the 23rd hour just doesn't seem to make sense to me.
Okay. That was my thinking as well. But anyone else? Or are we good with leaving the question off this year? I think we're okay.
I have a question, Katie, about the CARES grant. I've been reading a lot about the CARES grant, and nowhere in there and this, it's a question because I can't find it, but I haven't found a place where there's for salaries. And that's where it seems like a lot of our care grant money is going. And when we looked at the budget last time, so that was my concern, is that can we even actually use the CARES grant for that? Also, I have an issue with that because then I feel like we're going to pay with it this year, and then next year we're not going to have that money for those people. And I'm not really too keen on that, but I was just questioning.
So that's what we're not getting any clarity on. People have asked about it, and they're not giving real clarity on it. So exactly. I mean, Adam and I talked for an hour and a half this afternoon about, we had pulled positions out, then we put positions in, then, you know what I'm saying? So we're really looking at, if there were certain positions, we need absolute clarification from the DOE that would be accepted. So you're absolutely right, Pam. Sue Doris said they will not give a definitive answer. What they have said is it should be a maintenance use, not to add. They are saying you've got to watch that you're not adding positions, but then they're not saying you can add positions. So there's still a lot that we need clarification. And I mean, it's not the DOE's fault. They're getting guidance from federal government, and that guidance keeps shifting and changing. So we're hopeful that we'll get more clarity in the next week or two before our May 20th meeting. And if we have to wait till May 27th to really be definitive on that, then we'll wait. So I'm with you, Pam. It has not been clear.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Anything else, Katie?
No? So
Nope.
we'll move on to calendar.
Yeah, I'm going to say so. Let's move on to planning and development.
So, as you know, we did not bring a calendar forward to you earlier. And now I am bringing you a calendar to look at for conversation. Courtney, Bree, and Maureen are on this Zoom. I'm going to start it, and then they have a presentation they would like to make. So I'll unshare, and then they'll share. But it was kind of a gift again that we didn't rush to do a calendar because there's a lot to be considered. And so I'm going to take you through the thinking around this calendar, and you will recognize an asterisk right up front, which is subject to change, right, due to COVID-19 pandemic. So I want you to know you've got to really think to yourself that this is our best thinking right now today. It doesn't mean that in August you don't bring it back the calendar and have a discussion. It doesn't mean in December you might come back and have a discussion on the calendar. We don't know what's going to happen. And so using our best thinking, we know we're going to need time to start up the school year, whether we learn that we can go back, that we can partially go back, that we can't go back, that we have to do. We need time for that with our staff. So what we did is we upfronted with 4 workshop days. We normally have 2. So what we did is we moved January's workshop day to the front, and we used we took one at the end of the year and moved it up front. When I talked to Courtney about the calendar, she and I kind of said, it doesn't make sense to have 2 workshop days in the week of the 18th and then 2 workshop days in the week of the 25th, which is what we would have done in our traditional calendar. Why not put all 4 the week of 25th, 26th, 27th, and 28th? This gives us a week of real planning and opportunity to work solidly for a week and prep to open. That means that the first day of school would be the 31st, and we always do this. Our kindergarten 9th graders come in first, and then the next day our 10 through 12 join. So that allows our freshmen to have some orientation. Will that be needed? Will we be able to do it? We don't know yet, but this is our best thinking right now. Then you can see that we have kept the early release days. We talked a lot, and the AA group is going to talk to you about to change this calendar significantly by reducing early release for elementary. I think would be premature, given we don't know what our needs will be. For example, we may use those early release days for gap or for interventions. So we may have some students stay for interventions while other teachers are doing PD. There's some flexibility there to respond to COVID-19 achievement gap there. But that's something you could also look at depending on what happens. So those have remained similar, which is the green bubbles are elementary. The orange squares are K-12. I aligned those to Lewiston's early release days. So Lewiston Auburn would be out, they have the same early release days for K-12. So that there wouldn't be the snow calling, oh dear, do you have early release? No, I don't, you do. Okay, so this was to be better aligned with Lewiston's K-12. So you'll see that. You'll see that there's the October teacher workshop day, which is aligned statewide with our technical centers. That's their big workshop day. So all the regional school districts have that as their workshop day. Then you'll see that we have Thanksgiving break, we have Christmas, I should say our winter break. Then in January, you'll see our holidays, our February, our April. And then you'll see the last day of school for students would be June 8th. And the last workshop day for our teachers and staff would be June 9th. Now, you'll also notice that I put snow days will be remote learning days. I think with what's happened, this is an opportunity, and you got to take advantage of the opportunity. Have we worked out any of the details to this? We have not. I've told folks we're going to probably have to get a group together, committee, the next superintendent. This is one of the things that will need to be worked on, which is what does remote days look like for snow days, right? How do we prepare for them? What are all the things that we can learn from other districts that have tried this and are doing this? I think we're going to see other districts move this direction. Worst comes to worst, you can't do remote days for snow days. You tack them on in June. Okay. So it's not, I just think to get parents thinking about, wow, we might have remote days rather than snow days and have to make them up. It's definitely, I think, doable. And, it doesn't need to be finalized. You could set a deadline with that committee, the remote learning committee for snow days, to say we need to have action by mid-October or beginning of November before the first storm day. Last year we had early November. So you might say, we want a recommendation from this committee by X date. So you'll notice that as well. Then you see all the to be announced. Until we know when we're starting, how we're starting, it's going to be hard to say where are their quarters, where are the trimesters, where, and those can be filled in later. So I'm going to stop sharing. Are there any questions regarding anything I've talked about? And then I'm going to let the AEA group share their thoughts.
No question, Katie, but I absolutely love the fact that we are going to potentially try to get rid of snow days and use them as remote learning. I think this is a great opportunity for that. I think we've proved that we can do it. Obviously, the fine details need to be worked out some, but just the fact that, if we have a really horrible winter, we're still getting out, the kids are still getting out in early June. I think that's great that not only, and I'm sure, like you said, others are probably looking at doing something very similar. It makes sense. Obviously, if we can figure out the details, but I think that's great that we're even considering it.
Brian, has your wife been doing the schooling?
She has, and she's been doing a phenomenal job.
I'm no longer going to pray for snow days. I will tell you that's all I'm going to say. I do think that we're keeping our options open, but I'm going to send my kids to you, Brian, on snow days.
Faith, have you turned in your substitute resignation? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. I'm throwing away all my hats with the trash on Tuesday.
Oh, all right. So let's bring any other questions from the committee right now.
The half day Wednesday, you talked about K through 6 and what you plan on doing with that. What about the high school days? Because we had planned on, before COVID, we had planned on discussing that and going over whether those were necessary. Because I know when those were initially instated, there was going to be a discussion after a few years after we had talked about PBL and all that. And once everybody was on the same page and understood what to do, that we may not require those anymore. So I was just curious.
No, good point, Pam. And I think the high school has shared things that they've been doing on their early release days. And so as a middle school, they've done a lot of work with positive behavior intervention support. They've done a lot of PD around data collection, planning. And I think they have the same need is they're going to need planning with the COVID-19 response as well, around remote learning, around achievement of gap. So I think they can do a similar thing as they may offer some intervention time, but they also need PD time. Remember when I talked to you last time about those platforms, we want consistent platforms. That's what the time we use that for is to get teachers up to speed on things they need, how they're responding, looking at their student data. With this whole shift in credit, we got to monitor how are kids doing in response to coming back after COVID-19. There's going to be a lot of work to do on top of the regular work they have been doing on those days, which is perfect. And Maureen can talk to that when they do their presentation, Pam, because Maureen is a high school teacher. So
Yes.
she can definitely
She's
share
my
that.
son's teacher.
Oh, great. Then you can hear from her. Okay, so I'll let you take over, Maureen, and Courtney and Bree.
You're on mute.
Sorry. Now to find my presentation. Okay, here we go. So let me start again. So basically we surveyed the whole entire staff of every single building, not just AEA members. And there were 3 questions that I asked, and they were, if early release days were removed, how would this affect us? Knowing that there's a possibility that that this might happen, what are some alternative things that we can think of or compromise? And if we value district collaboration, how would we get together to honor that collaboration if Wednesdays are removed? Here are just some of the things that teachers came back with. So I surveyed all the staff, 130 responses. From that, 76 said that
76%.
they need the early release Wednesdays. And here are just some of the responses. No time for collaboration with other teachers to plan for students, and especially with not knowing what we're going to get when we come back, where students are going to be, especially in the elementary grades. There won't be time for PD because we do have our workshop days, and they are already slated either for district time or for building time. So if you're trying to put in time for collaboration on data and so forth, there wouldn't necessarily be that time, and we would be trying to find it elsewhere. I got something from AMS saying that there's wouldn't be time to work on PBIS. And it allows, those Wednesdays allow us to plan as a team and to look at student work. And then, so why we need Wednesdays even more now is just these are unprecedented times that we're going through with COVID-19 happening and having to go online learning for students. This is just going to cause a slide in their education more than just the summer slide that happens every year. And teachers are going to need time to come together and collaborate to put a plan in place. to help those students. But I do have a question for you, and I'm going to stop sharing this. Is that I know that that's something that's been stated every year is to discontinue with half-day Wednesdays. So my question to the board is, where do you see, let me try this again, is how do you expect us to do all those things, look at data, collaboration, and planning for students and with our team members to get students to where they need to be?
So I'm going to kind of kick this off and start this off. So as an educator myself, I know how valuable that time is. So I think it was a matter of the school committee member who really, wanted to make sure that this was still part of what teachers wanted, what teachers needed, and did they see this time as valuable and important time for them versus kiddos are now not in the buildings, and what type of instructional time are we pulling away in order to grant for professional time. But I think that's sort of where the pull was coming from. So I just want to sort of say it was just sort of, and I let the school committee member speak as far as the person who wanted this, to kind of come, let's find out from teachers, do they still want this? Do they still need this? So I think that's where the question came from.
And I was the person who brought it up. So I will tell you that when they did they had a subcommittee about half-day Wednesdays back in, I don't know, probably about 10 years ago. I was actually on that committee, and I listened to both sides. And I was once I heard what teachers were doing, because at that time there was a lot of discussion about, teachers are going out to lunch, they're doing this, they're doing that. And there was a lot of that discussion. I'm not saying that's true, but that's what that was the misconception. And after that meeting, I remember saying, we have to make sure that the people know why we're doing half-day Wednesdays. Let people know, let parents know, so there is none of that misperception anymore. So I was all for and actually I was very for half-day Wednesdays. My issue came more when, as a parent with the high school students having the half-day Wednesday and releasing all these kids into the public with no, at the time, there was nothing set up for these kids. They were just going to be released. And where I understand that the whole PD part, plus when this was first initiated, the reasoning for it was because of PBL, was because this was new and that this was specific PD for teachers to understand what PBL was, how to institute it, and how to work it. And it was said, well, once all the teachers are up on that, then we can look at it again. So my question was, maybe since that actually, we either are doing it or not doing it, it's time to look at if we still need it. Now, if teachers are saying, yes, it's something that's needed, then I'm all for it. But I just want to make sure that yes, this is something that the teachers want, and not just because, we've had it for 3 years, we'll just keep going. Because we all know the more the kids are in school, the better it is. But like I said, it's about, I want to make sure that the teachers are on board with this. Because I get, from teachers speaking to me, I'm kind of getting both sides. Like some agree with it, some think it's a waste of time. And so I appreciate that you guys have actually polled teachers and ask them. So thank you.
So Pam, Maureen was on the most recent committee that when we talked about high school. And I think that there's been when we had those conversations, and Maureen, correct me if you had a different recollection, but PBL or proficiency-based diploma actually was in the pipeline and moving forward. That was used as an example, much as you hear today, Courtney using an example of COVID-19 is going to put create a need that hasn't existed before. At the time, it was the proficiency-based diploma was creating a need, but there were other things we talked about that teachers wanted to use the time for. They didn't have time to collaborate, to get together, to have common, have discussions about common opportunities across course offerings. Maureen, I don't know if you want to jump in on that, but that was something that I've heard before, and that really was used as an example, not as this is why we're doing it.
For example, in science, we've moved to the next generation science standards this year, which are different from the former standards. So there's been a lot of work deciding what standards are required for graduation and how we're going to assess the learning around those standards. And then looking at the work that's been done by students towards those standards and adjusting what we've been doing. And it's really been a great time for the departments to get together. None of us have common planning time. We have a planning period every other day, and rarely does it match up with someone else. So this has been a time for the entire department to get together and do that, and that's been happening throughout the other departments as well. We've also been looking at data. We track the number of students who are at a certain level in terms of passing or not passing, and looking at how attendance affects that and how their student habit grade affects that, and what are we doing to help them achieve. And it's really been a great opportunity to get together as a department at more than an hour-long department meeting after school, which is often information-based. So I can't imagine where we'd find time to do that if we didn't have it. It's only once a month that we get that time, but it really does make a difference.
Okay. Thank you. I mean, that's what I want to hear. I want to hear what, from the teachers, and again, a lot of times, as a parent, you're wondering why does my child have to come home? And that's that. I was hearing that from a lot of parents too. And when this first came out, you'll remember there were a lot of parents that came out to talk about this and had showed concerns about the half day Wednesday and where the kids were going to be and stuff. But I think it's important to know exactly like what you're saying, Maureen, like what you guys are doing, why it's important. I think for the community to understand, I think is in the transparency and all that. But I think that's important. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you very much for the information, because the more information we get from teachers, and we like to see, polls being done to get more feedback. The more feedback, the better with any situation. But Katie or Michelle, can I clear, obviously I know the high school, it's new, and middle school for half day Wednesdays, but how long has Auburn been doing elementary half day Wednesdays?
Well, it was there when I started 31 years ago.
Okay, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And Auburn has evolved from being, and I think the language has to be really careful too. When I think half day Wednesdays, that's my Kendall, who was, she's done and graduated now. It was a half day, and it's not half day anymore. It's I think we need to be careful to change our language a little bit and make sure we call it, it's early release Wednesday. Kids are in school longer. They're in school, we've kind of, been open to some of the feedback that families have provided, that instead of getting, so now they get out later, and the elementary gets out later than they used to. I think by an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes. I could be wrong on that time, but so I think there's been some response. Yeah.
No, you're right. Absolutely, Karen. And we used to meet every week. It used to be early release every week. And that was changed, I think, 15 years ago when this came up. So it's like every time it's come up, there has been adjustments. So you make a really good point about, it is really early release. And if you count our instructional minutes compared to other districts, even with the half day Wednesdays, well, not half early release Wednesdays, sorry. Early release Wednesdays, we still have the similar instructional time. Yeah. Because we start a little earlier and stay a little later. than some districts.
All right, great. Any other questions or comments about the calendar?
Maybe not specifically to the calendar, but I did want to kind of touch upon what Courtney said, that I did 100% appreciate the use of the release time, because what I know as an educator is that your time, like your planning times that you get that are built into your days are, you get so many a week or whatever. They're often taken, they're taken to cover a duty. They're taken to help address a student, that's having some trouble. It's to, do 20 other things than it is for the purpose of actually sitting down and planning your lessons and to getting all your materials and, all of that. So anyways, yes, I do appreciate everything and can sympathize with you that having that time to plan and for your PD is very important, because your time during the day gets taken away little by little.
All right. Thank you, Rose. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. It was great to have you, Maureen. Bree, you're not showing up on my grid of happy people here. I'm sure you're in there. I don't know if you're in
Bree
there.
was unable to join us tonight. She had another.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. I was going to say, I see Courtney but thank you so much. We appreciate you coming in and letting us know that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
all right.
Thank you. So on May 20th, you'll be asked to approve the calendar. So It will be back to you on May 20th.
Okay.
So the next one was a request, which is the spring coach stipend. So that you're aware, back in March, when all of this started, we were not sure about whether a spring season would even occur. And so Todd Sampson and myself were in conversations, I would say in email conversations, and had a couple of other conversations regarding how will we respond if the season is canceled. He was doing research around, what were other districts doing, what were his fellow athletic directors recommending. I was listening to Western Maine superintendents. We were getting feedback from other regions about what was being considered. So when the season was canceled, Todd and I really discussed what is fair, where the spring coaches had probably had one meeting with their athletes, that we would do the 33% for the head coach of the sport, and then 20% for the JV freshmen and Auburn Middle School coaches. And so that was the decision we made. We believe it's fair. We also understand, Courtney and I talked with Coach Gibson yesterday, lessons learned about, communication or, empathizing. Obviously people do plan, some coaches see that as additional funds in their budget. Some coaches consider that those dollars important in their livelihood. And so we understand that. But we really feel, it was, I know a couple of districts that paid the stipends. I know several that didn't pay them at all. And then there were several that were similar to us, which is we paid a percentage. So I did tell Coach Gibson that tonight I was speaking to all of you, and he knew that. And I said I was standing by my decision to do that, which is the 33%. I did also speak to Karen that we need to start communicating to our fall coaches around what are we going to do for fall stipends if seasons are canceled or modified. And so some direction from all of you. Do you want to do similar in fall, which is the 33.20? Do you not want to pay them at all if there's no season? So that I can be communicating that sooner rather than later, just to let them know you need to be budgeting accordingly because we're not sure about your coaching stipend. I have only received 2 communications around this, one from Coach Gibson, one from another coach saying thank you, that we even paid a portion Todd Sampson has also received more positives around thank you for paying a portion of it. And so I think that in these times we had to make difficult decisions. They're not always the popular decision. And we just feel we feel is fair, but we also recognize it impacts people. So.
All right, so let's open it up for discussion or comments. Yeah, this is an item we wanted on the agenda. Go ahead.
I would just like to say, I think what Superintendent Grondin and Todd did was very generous. That I reached out to Katie, I think it was on April 8th or 9th, after the MPA announced no spring sports, and actually said, hey, we're going to save some money here. What can we do to minimize the damage for next year's budget? And she said it at that time. I thought it was generous. I'm glad that the folks who you've heard from are appreciative of that. And I think it is prudent that we discuss fall sports. Mm-hmm. And hearing that there's a curtailment coming, that the state for this quarter has forecasted a $1 billion shortfall. I mean, I don't want to vote on the fall quarters, but I think we have to look at that as, the margins and stuff that we may need to say that that's something that we're not going to be able to do if there's no fall sports. But I want to repeat, I thought the 33% and 20% was very generous, and I'm glad it was received well.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I do want to say that, I think we should treat both groups the same. So if that's what we decide to give them, then I think we need to reciprocate that for the fall coaches. Just because I personally think if we're going to do it to one, if I'm hoping that there's fall sports, but in the case that there are not, I just think we need to prepare that, and prepare the coaches, like Katie said, as soon as we can, just to have communication and let them know what to expect. And it's unfortunate. These are unprecedented times. It's for so many reasons. I'm glad that we have been able to pay our teachers, our ed techs, our staff, because, we have never lived through times like this. And I just don't want to, I want to be fair, but we also have to consider what we're going through right now. But I personally would like to see that we treat both groups the same way.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yep. I just wanted to say thank you, Katie, for, following up and giving us that information. I think that's awesome. And I appreciate it. And Faith, thank you. That is a very good point. I didn't think about that yes, both groups should be treated equally. So I would have to say that I agree with Faith's recommendation of treating both groups the same. So discussion, I would like to discuss going forward about fall sports, but I don't think that discussion is necessarily right now.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So I think I am a very fair person, and I agree with being fair. The only thing so the spring sports and the spring, the coaches and stuff have already started doing things. And the reason I think, I'm not, as opposed to paying some of it, is because, I know my son plays baseball. He's already had a meeting, that took the coach time to get the roster, get everything organized. They already started doing some of the work for their sport. So I agree with them getting paid for that. If we tell people in the spring that there's no sports, we are literally paying them for nothing. And I know that sounds like I'm being mean, and I'm not, because I wish I could pay everybody everything and wish we had plentiful money and could pay everybody everything. But the reason for, and I may be wrong in my thinking here, the reason for a stipend is because you are taking time out of your regular job as an educator, and you're doing something above and beyond. And that's why you're being paid a stipend. But if you're not doing that, then to pay someone, especially like what Dave said, when we have $1 billion deficit coming up and there's only so much money. And unfortunately, if we have to keep doing things like, paying these extra things, these are now we're talking about jobs, and we're talking about people losing their job because we can't afford to pay a regular salary. And that's my fear. My fear is that if we keep paying stipends and we do this, and I'm not going, I don't want to go against what we've already agreed to pay the spring coaches, because that was already done. And I don't want to take that away. But I think going forward, I think we really need to be cognizant of the fact that we really have no money. and this COVID-19 is just getting worse. And my biggest fear is that if we keep paying stipends and all these other things, that it may cost someone a job. And that would be my worst nightmare, would have to be that. I know personally, in the hospital, people are taking I know physicians that are taking cuts in pay right now. Managers are taking 20% cuts in pay. People they're feeling this, and not just small businesses, but, corporations like hospitals. So that's my fears. I just want everybody to have a job. I want everybody to be working. And I don't know. I'm just rambling, but I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Nope, we got it. Brian Carrier?
I'm just going to sort of dovetail on what Pam said. Given what we know that's coming up and what we're currently dealing with the city, I agree with Katie in doing what she did for the spring sports. Those folks had already started their season. I think that going forward, we should be basing it on whether or not we're having the season. I wish we could pay them, but as Pam has pointed out, there's no money, and be brought up in a little bit later on in my part from the city is we're talking some serious cutbacks. And so I think that we need to be cognizant of that. And I think that we need to be worried about saving as many positions as we possibly can.
Okay. So at this point, are people sort of feeling comfortable just do a show of hands or a poll to support the superintendent's decision in the 33-20 for the spring coaches? This has nothing to do with the fall coaches yet. We'll have that conversation later on. But are people feeling okay to just kind of, support, got to stick with it? Or do you want to have more conversation around this?
One thing Pam, I'm not saying this to correct you, but our coaches don't take time out of their job to do this.
No.
They take time out of their life to do this, and I can tell you,
and that's what I meant. Sorry.
How many kids complete school because of a great coach? Like that's
Absolutely.
why they get up and go. So I 100% agree what Superintendent Grund did this fall. I'm 100%, my fingers are crossed, like Faye said, that, next September we're watching a football game.
There you go. Yep.
So, but I appreciate what you did, Katie.
But
yeah, I just add that, with COVID, we're really making decisions day by day. So my concern is if that we're going to decide that we're not, we are not going to pay the fall coaches a stipend, and then say this, God willing, this all, goes away and we can pull in. I'm hoping we can start the seasons, but what if we start 3 weeks late? Those coaches, if they're, it's a commitment and a sacrifice from their life. And if you guys look at the number lines, they do not get paid much for the amount of hours and time that they put into it. It is pennies. Yeah. I mean, they're basically volunteering. Yeah. That money that they're paid is travel expenses. And I mean, they're away from their families a lot. And a lot of our children, especially kids that school is their outlet, sports their outlet, that's my concern, that they've been home and they haven't had an outlet. And to lose that commitment from a sport, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And I think that is a very scary thought to make the decision. I think we're just going to have to make the decision day by day. And again, if you look at the lines on the budget, they're very minimum what we pay these coaches.
They are. So right now when I'm asking.
Just to clear.
I was going to say, sorry, Kate.
Sorry, Karen. While you're taking the poll, just to clarify, we would not reduce the budget. I'm not suggesting taking the stipends out. What I'm suggesting is communicating with fall coaches.
Absolutely.
There's a strong possibility, not stipend. Here might happen, just so you are planning in your head that if the fall season's canceled, you may or may not receive your stipend. If there's a partial season, there may be an adjustment to your stipend, just so they get a heads up. I'm sure they already do because they knew what happened in spring.
Right.
But I think in fairness, I want to be communicating sooner than the week before, oh, we're going to do this. And they said, well, see,
I think that would become an agenda item. What we're looking at for fall stipends, just so that people have an understanding of what they're saying yes to when they sign on the fall stipend, the fall coaching. Right now, I just want to know, do we have support for the decision that Superintendent Grondin and the athletic director made around paying coaches for spring only right now? Take fall right off the plate right now, but do we have support to stick with the 33%?
Yes.
Dan Poisson? Okay.
Yep.
All right. You have, yep. Okay. Unfortunately, we want to pay them 100. We want to pay everybody 100. We want to make all kinds of accommodations, but like we've said, it's just not.
And it's not just sports either. There's drama.
Sure.
There's other things that, that we're doing. And I don't want to look like the bad guy here and say, I don't want to pay anybody. I want to pay everybody, but I also don't want to get, and I agree, Faith. I think we should play by ear because who knows? Maybe it'll be fine by the time, fall comes and this won't even be a discussion because we're going to have sports and we're going to have a play and we're going to have all these things.
Katie, when do fall contracts go out for fall sports?
Adam, do they go in August?
I would say maybe as early as July, but certainly by early August at the latest.
Okay, I'm just trying to think of when this should pop up on our agenda. If we put it on too soon, too later, but it's certainly.
I guess I could. I mean, agenda item or not, what I'm hearing, because I saw nods, I can communicate with them that there'll be further discussions regarding the fall stipend so that they know it's not going to be an automatic or it won't be automatically 33%.
Okay.
So we certainly can, because I did talk to Todd. It would be great if he in June would be on an agenda item so he could talk to you about what is being thought about for fall, because there's a lot of discussion going on right now about fall. And so I'm thinking the first meeting in June or the second meeting in June, he would come and talk to you, and that would be a great opportunity to talk about the stipends.
Okay, let's do June 3rd. So let's make that an agenda item then for June 3rd. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for that conversation.
Yeah, thank you for that conversation.
Okay, moving on. Business. Auburn School Department's Emergency Operation Plan. Annually, we need to approve the school department's emergency operation plan. Are we ready to take a vote, or anything need to be communicated on that, Katie?
Okay, now I'm muted. I know.
No, you're muted again.
Oh, all right, now I'm back. No, we did that in executive session. It's an annual requirement, and so I need your approval of that.
Yep, absolutely. Can I entertain a motion to approve the emergency operation plan that's presented to us?
So moved.
Thank you. That was Brian Belknap, I believe. Second? Oh, I heard a second. Last one I heard, I'll put Dan. Okay.
Second.
Okay, got it. All right, let's take roll call. Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3, yes. Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Faith?
Yes.
Dave Simpson?
I think he stepped aside.
He's there. I can't see who's Dave Simpson. Don't know where he just went. Brian Carrier?
Yes.
So I'm going to put for those present, motion passes 7-0. All set on that one. Policies, moving on to policies, first readings and procedures. I'm going to go over some of our first reading of policies. Michelle sent us quite a slew of policies this time.
So the policy subcommittee, Brian Carrier and Dan, met with Scott Anier and Celeste Bodette last week to review 3 policies and 2 procedures that you are looking at tonight. The 3 policies that we'll take up first, I'll remind you, require 2 readings. So this will be the first reading and approval on those policies. So let's take a look at those. And please, Brian and Dan, you hop right in. Would you like to present these or would you like me to present them?
Oh, you're good. Go ahead.
Yeah, you can do it.
All right. Don't want to
really,
deny
Michelle?
you. Don't want to deny the opportunity. So, well, the first one, policy EB, Environmental and Safety Program. Actually, all three of these are very similar, the policies anyway, in what they required for minimal changes. So EB, Environmental and Safety Program, policy EEA, drug and alcohol testing of school bus drivers, and policy EEAEF, video cameras on transportation vehicles. These three policies had minimal revisions. There was some wordsmithing, and there was some slight changes to align with current practice, but they were minimal in their changes. So, any questions on those three policies?
Any questions or comments at this time, or are we ready to vote? PM?
So we already have videos on the buses. Right. We've already had that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other? All right, can I entertain a motion to approve the first reading of the above listed policies as presented? And when I say above listed, those are the policies Michelle just talked about and the ones that are listed on the agenda.
So moved.
All right, Brian first, second.
I'll second. Faith.
Thank you. Thank you, Faith. And I can see you all now. Everyone's here. So all those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Yeah, thank you.
Two procedures that you're reviewing tonight require just one vote of approval. So you won't
I thought so. They were all right. I did the entire thing. There's 5 of them.
No, there were 3 in the policy, and we just voted on the 3 policy. And then you can see on the agenda, there are 2 procedures below that.
Oh, sorry. I clumped them together. Well, yeah, I clumped them together.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
That's okay. That's okay. So when I said the above, I was looking at the 3 above, but then there's 2 underneath that are here as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I need a motion. Do I still need a motion to approve the first reading of the above listed policies, or just that?
Well, did anybody, I mean, I would read just again, give you a quick explanation. They're both procedures. One is the procedure connected with the drug and alcohol testing. We did quite a bit of changes to this one, but again, to align with the model policy coming out of MSMA that is taking into account some changes in regulation. And then also to, as always, align with our current procedures in that area. So that was that procedure. And then the procedure that goes with the video cameras, less need for changes, but again, to mostly align with our current procedures to make sure there was clarity. So now, okay. Any questions, anyone on that one?
Any questions on the procedures? Okay, let's take a motion can I entertain a motion to approve the first reading of the above listed policy procedures?
Good.
So moved.
All right, Brian Carrier, you popped up. Second.
Thank
you, Brian Belknap. And I can't see you now, so I'll have to do roll call. So Ward 1?
Yes.
2?
Yes.
I'm 3, yes. 4?
Yeah. Yes.
5?
Yes.
Faith, thank you. Dave Simpson?
Yes.
And Brian Carrier?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Capital Improvement Project.
Okay, so this is a request that I'm bringing to you on a project that we're doing at the Support Services Building, aka the Bus Garage on Industry Avenue. As we've discussed in Finance Committee over the last month or so, we have currently a 10,000 gallon diesel tank that is rapidly becoming obsolete as we phased out our diesel fleet. And it had very little fuel left in it. And so Billy and I discussed that it would make sense to switch the tank over to gasoline. As our gasoline fleet has grown, we currently have 26 vehicles with potentially more buses being added. And so with that in mind, and with the market having fallen through the floor on fuel, we went out to bid to lock in gas for the next 16 months, which we locked in at $1.37. So the company that we were working with to switch the tank over, once it was empty, ran into a surprise, which is the tank was very pitted and not suitable to be converted. So with our gallonage already locked in and a tank that's not usable, we're now at the point where we need to look at replacing with a new tank. So we're currently getting quotes on that to have the new tank installed. And that along with the tank goes the computer system and equipment that runs the fobs that everyone will use to put that in. So what we thought was probably a $5,000 to $10,000 project to pay for out of this year's budget is now probably a $40,000 to $50,000 project that we would need to tap into CIP to complete. So a couple of reasons why we need to move ahead with this. One is the gasoline we've already locked into, but two, currently the city has only one place to fuel up their gas vehicles. This would give the city another option on that other end of town. There would now be two options available for the city and the school department to fill up gas vehicles. So we feel that this is not just about money, but it's also about providing more options that are needed for safety for the city and the school department moving forward. So with that, I'd take any questions, but that's the proposal we're bringing to you tonight.
Do you think it's worth the savings to spend that type of money?
So Dan, I think if you look at just the dollars, the return on investment would take many years, but I don't think it's just about the dollars. I think it's also about the redundancy for the city.
And you sure? I think it would come in at more than 50,000. But we put in a tank in 2006 that was 10,000 gallons and cost us 125,000.
So where does the 50,000 come from, Adam? Are you starting to get some proposals?
Yes, we do have one proposal in hand that would come in below that number. We're seeking more proposals as well.
Okay. So when you talk about city as well, so so the city would have access to this this fueling facility as well, this gas tank as well?
Yeah, so if they have police vehicles or emergency operations vehicles that need to fuel up, they could stop there and fuel up, use their fob, and we would charge them our contracted price for that gasoline.
So since the city would be using this as well, is there a way, Brian, that we could go in on them with them, that they could split the cost of this?
I would, at this point, I'd say no, simply because of the conversation we had today. My thought was, do we need a new fob system, or could we use the one that we existing?
Billy, are you able to address that?
Yeah, I can. The fob system is the same age as the tank. It's 21 years old. It's a plug-in key type system where you have points on the key when it plugs in that touches points on the reader, and those are starting to fail. That's why a lot of these places have gone to the fob. You just wave it in front of a little screen. We don't have that. So we have a number of keys that have already failed on this system. The thought is that if you're going to replace the tank, you replace the fob system so you don't have to do that again, next spring if it completely fails. I did have a question for Dan, though. He brought up quite a high cost on the replacement of a fuel tank. I want to remind everybody that this is above ground tank that we're replacing, not an in-ground tank.
Okay.
So there's no digging or environmental things there. And we've already taken care of our environmental research with Woodward and Kern, who takes care of our SBCC plan. So that part has already been approved. So I just wanted, I had a feeling that Dan is referring to a tank.
Yeah, that was in ground. Yeah, that was in ground. So.
Yeah, and ours is totally above ground. The pad is there. We're just replacing the tank. We don't have to replace the pump. We're requesting to replace the tank and the card reader system, which would help Like Adam said, the rest of the city, we've already had a request from the fire department to ask if they can fuel over here because they're just down the street. So I think it serves a lot of functions, and we are going to a lot more fuel or gasoline than we have in the past. We currently filled up just one time in the last year with diesel. Switching to gas, with the current fleet, we'll be filling that tank at least 3 times this year. And as the fleet grows in gasoline, we'll fill it more often.
All right.
Dan, just another point I want to make on your question about is it worth the money? This is now an item that we'd essentially be bonding over 10 years, and the life expectancy is over 20. So, I do feel that it's a good bang for the buck, especially when you consider the flexibility that it gives both to us and the city.
Which should they use an outside vendor right now, like Nest or something like that, I believe? Is that who they use for gas?
For our gas supply?
Yeah. No, to fuel up now. How do they fuel up now for gas?
Oh, our buses?
Yes.
Billy, do you want to explain that?
Yeah, we have, we're using 2 systems actually, because Gracelawn is the closest area as far as the city, which is the Public Works Department. So if we have vehicles that are close to the Public Works Department, we fuel them there. If not, we fuel some of them at the Irving store down the street, which is naturally a lot higher than what we can lock in at. So, you got to factor in the cost of sending a person from Industry Ave area or what we call the south side of town all the way to the north side of town to fuel a bus. So there's the cost of labor and time there, just to save a few cents at Public Works, so that makes us a lot more efficient in that manner also.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
What would the immediate consequence be of not making this purchase?
The immediate consequences, we would have 22,500 gallons of gasoline that we've locked into that we have no way to take delivery of. So we would be having a very uncomfortable conversation with the vendor, would be the immediate. But the more long range consequences, just the inefficiency and the lack of redundancy for the school department and the city.
Our choice would be either to pay the higher price at the Irving store or have all our vehicles, which is like Adam says, in the 20s now, that are gas vehicles, go up to Gracelawn from Industry Ave.
And you said the tank they said was unsafe to use?
Yeah, when we started the process of switching over, and naturally they recommended cleaning it to make sure that the new fuel going in doesn't get contaminated with some old fuel that is left behind. So they did, part of our contract was to have a cleaning. And as the guy was inside cleaning it, he found numerous areas of pitting, took some pictures. We were working with Samad & Son in Lewiston, and they immediately called us and says, look, this tank that has some issues, and I would not recommend using it. It would be far more expensive of an issue if we did fill it up and we had 5,000 to 7,000 gallons of tank in there of gasoline in there, and the tank did start to leak into the outer tank. Now we're going to have to dump the whole thing somehow and start from scratch. So right now we do have an empty tank, so we don't have to worry about any spillage, and it's an opportune time to switch it over due to the empty tank.
Can they coat it? Sometimes they can coat the inside of those. Did you ask about that?
I did not ask them. They did send some pictures that showed quite a bit of pitting. They did not recommend any coating at all. So I can't answer that.
Yeah. Okay.
But is it something that should be answered before we take a vote on whether or not to approve this? Is that, Dan, you have much more experience in this one, all the experience with this.
Years ago, we had one coated, The only reason we changed it again is because we were required to by law because they're inside the ground. If they were above ground, we could have left it alone. So that was quite a few years ago, but yeah, I'm not sure if they still do that or not. I'm not sure. You'd probably have to ask Samad and Sons. They would probably know.
Yeah, we can look into that.
I mean, Karen, regardless of if they code it or if they replace it or whatnot, aren't we?
You still need the funds. Yeah.
Well, we're voting to allow them to move forward with anything, right?
Yeah.
We're not necessarily saying you have to do one or the other. It'd be nice to check into one, maybe save some money, but the way it's written here, it's up to X.
Just funds to install, right, a 10,000 gallon tank.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
So I think, in the event that there could be a coding, it's unlikely we would, I'm just guessing here, that we might not need the CIP funds, which would make it a moot point. So I think if you approve this tonight, we'd only move ahead with it if we needed to.
Okay, so if you can pursue an alter, like what Dan Posa was talking about, if there's an opportunity to mend or to code or whatever the conversation was at a much lower price than actually replacing the entire tank, then can we look at that option instead? Is that what I'm hearing you say, Dan, that it might be a more feasible option?
I'm not even sure if they do it anymore.
Right.
I'm not sure.
Right.
You get to find out, though.
Yeah. Absolutely. Let's find out first. Okay, so at this,
It doesn't hurt to ask.
no, not in this day and age. It's not going to hurt to ask at all. So, any other questions or comments? Because we'll move to a vote. But they think the vote is the understanding that we'll pursue whatever the most frugal avenue that we can take with this one. Okay. So right now, can I entertain a motion to approve the request to allocate up to $50,000 of existing capital improvement funds to install a 10,000 gallon gas tank and related equipment at the support services building?
Karen, Brian has a question.
Oh, sorry. I didn't see him. Brian Carey, your question?
Yeah, I just had a quick question for Adam or Billy.
Okay, go ahead.
I know that, even if we can coat the tank with the fob system failing, would that be a separate bid, or is that all in one type bid?
I believe that's coming through as an alternate.
It's an alternate bid? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a motion. Actually, there's not a motion. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
All right, thank you. I heard Brian Belknap. Can I get a second?
A second.
Thank you, Faith. I have to do roll call because I can't see you all. So, Ward 1.
Yes.
2.
Yes.
3. Yes. 4.
Yes.
5.
Yes.
Faith.
Yes.
Dave.
Yes.
Brian Carrier.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank you very much. All right, moving on. 2020 retirement incentive program.
Okay, so am I on?
Yep.
Because when it's in the little square, you can't see your little mic.
I know. Yep, you're there.
Okay, thanks. So as we talked at budget meeting the last time, we talked about the retirement incentive. And so in order to ask folks whether they're interested, it's important to have what they are being asked to be interested in. This is also with the AEA right now. I've asked them to review it and make sure that they are in agreement. And they did have a couple of questions that we've talked through. So this is really just asking you to allow Karen to sign this MOA because she's the school board chair. Normally, these things sometimes go through the negotiations group as well. But we're moving on a quick timeline because we need to get response back in order to be able on May 20th to come to you with how many teachers are going to accept this. So you'll see that this is similar to other decisions we have to make. There has to be a line drawn, right? Here's the line. And is everyone going to be happy about the line? Not necessarily, but you have to have a standard. So this is the standard. And this is based on what we used in 2015. And we made some tweaks to it, but in general, this was the 2015 MOA. It's a one-time incentive. It is not an early retirement incentive. These people are able to retire, so it's an incentive to have them retire. The line is you have to be 62 years old by August, at least 62 years old by August 31st, 2020, and you have to meet Maine State Retirement's guidelines for your full retirement. So that's outlined. The procedure, as we told you, we showed you on the chart how many teachers qualify for this incentive. And so they would get an annual payment of $4,000, no more than 3 payments. That's why the age 62. So they get 3 payments till they're 60, till they turn 65, the year they turn 65. So if you're 62, you would get 3 payments. 63, you get 2 payments. 64 or older, you get 1 payment. And that's outlined in A, and in B, how that would be paid out. And in C is those conditions I just talked to you about. What we have done in our calculations is we need at least 5 teachers to opt in to take this. If we don't get the 5 teachers, it would not be fiscally advantageous for us. You have a breaking point to say, okay, the payouts is worth the return. So we have to have at least 5 agree to it. We're not counting one retiree that retired early by December 1st. So it would be that person plus 5 others. Okay. So we're not, it's 5 new. And then it outlines how they would be paid. We are limiting this incentive to 12 teachers. So this is kind of an incentive to the incentive, which is 12 teachers. But you can see there's also in there that we can consider more if more ask for it. But we're saying it's the first 12, and we need at least 5 as the bottom, the base. You'll notice that we put in here that we need a notice of retirement by May 18th at 3:30 that they intend to retire. And then you'll see, if something were to change, that you couldn't meet the 4,000, whatever, they could decide they're not going to retire. So they will be agreeing according to this MOA. And then as you can see, both parties will sign this. So as the AEA, that's it, and then Karen. So I put as presented. If there's some minor tweaks, I'm sure the board is fine with Karen. If there's a minor, can you clarify? Can we write this a little differently? But the intent of what's proposed stays intact. Mm-hmm. That Karen has board approval to enter into this MOA. This MOA will, once signed, will go into documentation where we keep the teacher's contract so that we don't lose sight of that. This will, once both parties have signed, we will send it out to those teachers that are eligible and see what happens.
I certainly support Karen signing this. My only question, Superintendent, is what's the cohort of eligible teachers who may or who could take advantage of this?
I think we said 15.
Okay, thank you.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think that's the number. I was trying to look back.
It was answered last time, and I just completely forgot.
Yeah.
So my apologies.
Yeah.
It is 15. Yeah.
I think so. All right. Any other questions?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Questions, comments, and I can't see everyone on the side. You're on the side right now. So any discussion? All right, let's bring it to a vote to entertain a motion to authorize the chair to sign the memorandum of agreement. Thank you. I'll take that.
Second.
All right, Brian, I'll take your second. I need to do roll call.
Yes.
Ward 1, yes. Ward 2?
Yes.
3 is yes. 4?
Yes.
5?
Yes. Oh, well, I'm not 5, sorry.
That's okay.
I'm next.
Mr. Ward 5, where am I at? Is that where I'm at?
Yes.
Dan.
Okay. Ward 5, is that yes from Dan?
Yes.
It was reading his lips. He's on mute, but you could read his lips.
I can't see him in my grid and I can't hear him. Where did Dan go? Hey,
Yes.
Dan, thank you. I'm like, I'm stuck at 5, man. All right. At large. Faith, yes, I think I heard. Okay. Dave Simpson, I think I
Yes.
heard. Yes. Okay. Brian Carrier.
Yes.
All right. Motion passes. Thank you, everybody. Okay. Moving on. Committee reports. Let's go. I'm going to go straight down the column. Finance Subcommittee.
I haven't met yet again.
Okay.
We've discussed a lot of the stuff that we've already talked about. We have a meeting that'll be coming up here shortly.
Okay. I'm going to slide across Policy Subcommittee. We just read your policies, just got some new policies tonight. Anything to add to it?
No, I think we had a meeting next week or the week after? I can't.
Look at my
Next
phone.
week.
But
Next week, the 12th.
Yeah, next week. Yes.
Next week, the 12th. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Let's go down to subcommittees. City Council update. Mr. Carrier.
For those of you who didn't see the meeting the other night, they're repeating what Katie's already said tonight. We had some questions in regards to the second question. The overall is, first of all, we didn't know really what it was good for, given, we never hear anything back on it very often. And the second is, if it's going to be on there, we would have liked to have more clarification as to what exactly the question was going to be asking and when it was going to be asked for. And sort of like that. We've already answered that, but that was just the thought behind it. The other item that we discussed, for those of you that did not watch the meeting, there's going to be some reevaluation of the city's budget going forward. City manager has been meeting and calling other municipalities in the state and talking it over with our finance and finance from the state. And the city will be making further cuts to the budget simply because of the revenue share and the excise tax is not going to be it's not going to be very good at all. So we will be considering other items to the budget next Monday night to see if we can't get to a better place to give us a better financial footing. But as you all know, this is not a good time. It's not going to be a good time. And as Dave said last time, we're going to have to make some hard decisions, and none of them are what we'd like.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Curriculum Subcommittee, we have not met. Has not met yet. Community Learning Center, Mr. Simpson.
No meetings.
Okay. The new building committee meeting. We had a building committee meeting just last night, and lots of different things were reported out. I think one of the things that we want to sort of things that haven't changed. None of the design has changed. The building is where the building is going to stay after its new home. They will be starting borings, and Katie or Pam jump in anytime. There's a lot of information shared last night. They're starting the borings where they're digging down in. There needs to be some conversation with the neighbors that abut the backside of the property, because with the building shifting, it put the building closer to their property line. And there will be some neighborhood committee meetings just to inform them or really let them know, give them the information as far as what's going on, because it's my understanding that we are, clear cutting right up there. Right now they see trees, and in the future that those trees will know, the buffer will no longer be there. If that's my understanding of that one. But construction.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. There were 3 property owners specifically that I spoke to one on the phone, and Billy Hunter and I visited 2 others where the soil borings are, and I believe they were done Monday and Tuesday. That had to be done, and they understood, so they are aware, as Karen said. And then there are other property owners that Billy and I need to have conversations with there's some owners that have encroached on school property. And so we need to have a conversation with them about that and what might be happening near their property lines. So those are in the plans.
And there will be a planned neighborhood meeting, so that this is not just, sort of suddenly they look out their backyard and life has changed out back there. So there will be neighborhood meetings to allow people to understand what is going on in the neighborhood. There was a conversation. Yep, Brian, I'll get you to in just a second. There was a continued conversation about parking and where student parking will be housed, where it cannot be housed on the existing site. I think there is a potential for a satellite parking, which would be close to AMS, on the backside of AMS, so that kiddos could also use the AMS buses to then use it as a shuttle. Once they drop off AMS, they could get a shuttle over to Edward Little. But parking is still a consideration that needs to be worked through. The current greenhouse, I know that I got a few conversations about what the current greenhouse that sits there now. There's a lot of sentimental value with that current greenhouse, and the current greenhouse will be picked up, moved, and kept safe. I know that public really had some interest in what was happening to the greenhouse, so it will be moved to a safe place during construction and rehoused somewhere on the Edward Little site. They're still working through, because the existing Edward Little building is considered an historical site. There are a couple of things, the Edward Little statue, the bell tower, things like that still need to be historically documented. And that is a whole procedure in and of itself, but the building will be documented, but it's not changing anything. It's not, there's no delays in time change. That's all staying relatively the same. There was a question last night about right now with pandemic and things that are going on right now. Is the financing still there for the project to even happen? And the answer that we got last night was that it's still there. The money was bonded by the voters, so the money is still there. There's a meeting coming up again with DOE. What else have I got? Did I miss anything, Katie or Pam?
So we had planned to go to the city planning board in June.
Oh yes, sorry, I missed that one.
That's all right. That's being moved to July. And so when Karen talks about a neighborhood meeting, that's connected with the planning board. Mm-hmm. And so where that's being moved out a month to July to allow Frank Crabtree, who's putting in all the documentation to make sure everything's in order, that we are pushing that to July. And so a neighborhood meeting happens before that meeting. So that will probably be in June or late in May, around preparing, neighbors. This is going to the planning board. Eric Cousins is handling all the organization around that. But you'll hear more about when the planning board will be reviewing the project, when the neighborhood meeting is, so that you can also be in attendance.
Okay. And we have another, next building committee meeting coming up is on June the 16th. So we'll get more updates at that point. I think I got it all.
You did.
All right. I think I did. Okay. Moving on where we are. DEI, I know has not met. Superintendent Search. This is one that we get lots of questions about. Superintendent Search. I think it's really important to say that it is the school committee at this point. We definitely have a top candidate and are negotiating, working through a potential contract and what that person would need. And I know that sounds redundant of what I reported out last time, but this is not an easy process and it's not a quick process, but we are taking steps closer and closer and closer. So soon we should hopefully be bringing a candidate forward for public discussion, public vote, and all of those things will be done publicly. But right now we are making tiny steps every day, and the negotiation team has done a phenomenal job getting us to the point that we're at right now. So as soon as we can announce, we promise we will announce something. I know people are waiting on that one. So taking steps, but not there yet. So thank you for your patience on that one. Technology, Brian Belknap, I don't know.
No, I have been so focused on trying to get the new superintendent contract and negotiations settled. I did reach out to Peter the other day just to see how things were going in general. I know he's under some pressure, just obviously with remote learning and trying to make sure that all the needs are met. We're just trying to coordinate our schedules now to potentially do a Zoom or whatnot. But like I said, my sole focus is on getting the conditional sign off. So
yeah, absolutely. Because no offers have been made yet. Let's make that public. No offers for superintendent job have been made yet. But boy, we can't wait to get there. All right. Wellness committee. I don't know if you've met.
Sorry, we have not met.
Okay. Audit committee.
Nothing.
Okay. Transportation.
Nothing.
All right. Share center. I don't even think they're open, Rose. They're not open right now.
No, they're still not open.
Okay. What about they were hoping to move into the Martell building? Anything new on that?
Yeah, they are in the new Martell building for about the next 2 years, they estimate. But they still are looking for a permanent home. So because the contract for Martell went to goodness, I forget the name, but the developer that is going to change it into into apartments, like low income housing. So when they start work on that project, then we're going to have to move Share Center out.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. Negotiations. I know right now with Faith and Brian, they are working to come to some sorts of agreement with the superintendent contract. Anything else right now in the works for negotiations?
Just at the nutrition one, I think we're meeting next Friday to start the nutrition negotiation.
Okay. All right. And parent advisory, we can't wait to get back to that type of stuff too. So, all right, everyone. Taking a look at upcoming meetings, we have a May 20th is our next meeting with 6 o'clock for budget workshop. And then, as we discussed a little earlier, we've added the 27th as another budget workshop, and then another regular meeting on June 3rd. All right. Anything else? Any future agenda items? You can let us know right now, or you can reach out to either Superintendent Grundon or myself. But other than that, if anyone wants to add anything right now, let us know. No need for executive session at this point. So, ladies and gentlemen, can I entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Second?
Second.
All right, got it. I'll put Dan. Now I can see all of you again. All those in favor? Give me a thumbs up or a yes or a wave. Yes, yes, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, motion is adjourned, 8:46 p.m. Thank you so much.
Stay healthy, everyone.
Have a good night. Stay healthy. Yes, absolutely. Bye.
Bye.